Today is the Monday after the Friday in which we heard about the court's decision in relation to the NAR lawsuit brought on by a group of sellers, and the case basically was arguing whether or not it was fair for sellers to be burdened with paying both the buyer side and the seller side commission in a real estate transaction. Well, the courts determined that it wasn't fair. So going forward, when a listing agent goes in to sign a seller to a listing agreement, they are no longer going to be able to couple their commission with the buyer's agent's commission and then determine out of that commission amount what they're going to pay the buyer's agent. Essentially, the seller is not going to be responsible for paying both the listing agent commission and the buyer's agent commission. They're only going to pay the listing agent commission. And it's going to make buyer's agents have to fend for themselves, if you will, in their own negotiation with the buyers that they represent in determining how much that buyer is going to pay them for their services. So this is a big change in our industry, and with change comes fear, and people might be freaking out, especially if you service a lot of buyers. Oh no, what's going to happen? Am I even going to get paid? Am I even going to be needed in a real estate transaction? So I got to thinking about this over the weekend, and I was like, I really need to make a video to address this, because although I target sellers on my channel as I pursue listings, calling expireds and for sale by owners, I'm thinking about buyer's agents right now, myself as a buyer's agent, and any buyer's agent out there who does a lot of work with buyers. I don't think you have anything to worry about. And I'm going to state the reasons why here in this video. But essentially it comes down to this. When you can demonstrate value for your product or service, you will have business. You do have to get super clear on articulating that value now. That is critical in this new environment, without a doubt. But let's explore some of the reasons why I think buyer's agents are going nowhere at all. Their job description has not changed. It's just the way that their payment has been determined or is going to be determined. That is what has changed. Number one, access to properties. As it stands now, lockbox codes are put in the MLS, and when a buyer's agent wants to show their buyer a property, they go into the MLS, they look at the code, and then they go to the property and they know how to unlock the key to the property and let their buyer in because they have access. As real estate agents, we've all been background checked, so we are here to keep everything safe for the sellers, for the buyers, for the property, and all that. I don't understand how, if a buyer decides, you don't want to use a buyer's agent, I'm going to go see these properties on my own, I don't understand how they're going to get into the properties. Of course, logically, the first thing they would do would be to contact the listing agent and arrange a showing. But real estate agents are busy and we're running around at all times at different appointments. We might not be able to get to the property at the time that they want to see it. Well, let's say that another buyer has an agent and they want to view the home. They are most likely going to get in before the unrepresented buyer. And in a tight seller's market, when time is of the essence, when time really is of the essence always in real estate, they're going to be a few steps behind. So that's one reason why working with a buyer's agent is going to be critical, just to even access the homes that you're thinking about purchasing. Number two, the vocabulary of real estate. Is a new homeowner or a new prospective homeowner going to know what due diligence is? Earnest money? Are they going to know how to review a seller's disclosure? And if you don't know these key terms, and maybe just Google them, how informed are you really going to be about your rights and about the process as you work towards home ownership? Even if you've purchased a home before, you might be a little bit rusty on these terms. And you definitely need to have somebody that is skilled in this playing field and they know what to do in order to make the transaction happen. You can't be guessing about, well, how much due diligence should I be putting down? It'd be great if you knew how much you should be putting down with regards to the age of the property, with regards to current due diligence amounts that we're seeing in the market. But if you don't do this all the time, you're not going to be privy to that information and you might really not know what's happening. It's just the vocabulary and the terms that we use are critical to getting a deal done. Number three, let's just talk about the contract. We all know in real estate the contract is king. And if you don't know how to submit a contract, it's going to be behind the eight ball. Recently, we were working with a seller, representing a seller, and we had a direct buyer, an unrepresented buyer, approach us wanting to put in an offer on a property. They did not want to use a buyer's agent, even though the buyer's agent commission was coupled in to the overall commission for the listing. They decided, no, I don't want to use one. Their reasoning was the commission that the seller would pay a buyer's agent, they were going to try to just knock that off the purchase price. Fair enough. I mean, that's their choice. But in trying to get the deal done, they submitted an offer and it had a lot of errors in it. And again, our job was to represent the seller and the seller only, and we had to communicate to the buyer, you really need to resubmit the offer with addressing this, this, and this. The seller wasn't comfortable working with a buyer that wasn't represented because they wanted to make sure that we were just representing them and we weren't representing the buyer, which we weren't, of course. We just had to communicate with them. It got difficult working with an unrepresented buyer. Not saying that it can't be done. It can be done, but in this particular instance, it was very difficult. Something to think about. Number 4, network of professionals. When you meet with me or when people meet with you, it's not just you they're meeting with, right? No. We have a network of people behind us. We have preferred lenders. We might have a great painter that we've used in the past, or maybe a great landscaper or floor specialist, or an attorney that we go to with questions. When you are trying to get a real estate deal done, it takes a lot of people. And if you don't have those people as go-tos to address questions and just get information from when time is of the essence in getting to closing, that is going to put you in a weaker position. Real estate agents might look like they're traveling alone, maybe if they're a solo agent. They're really not. We've got a network of people behind us. We've got all kinds of names and numbers in our phones, people that we've worked with in the past, people that know us, people that will take our phone call if we need a question addressed. And if you don't have that network, it's going to be more difficult for you to get answers to the questions that you need in order to make decisions about purchasing a property. Number 5, my favorite, negotiating. It is going to be so much harder for an unrepresented buyer, in my opinion, to negotiate against a represented seller. Because how are they going to really look at the comps? Yes, they can go to Zillow or Realtor.com and they can try to look for older listings and try to keep track of what's sold and what hasn't sold. But we all know that the MLS has that data for us and it's very detailed. And we know how to pull things according to, number of bedrooms and bathrooms. Was there a garage? When was it built? Is there a basement? Is there a crawl space? Looking at the photos, have there been any updates made? We have all that information readily available to us as agents, and the average buyer is not going to have that. So when they go into negotiation, they're not going to really have the information that they need to negotiate from a position of strength, and that's where I think our value probably comes in at the highest. Negotiating, you can just kind of give it a whirl, but if you do that, you're going to really put yourself in a high risk area. The seller could be listing the property for sale at a very high price that doesn't make sense. And if you don't know that, you can't make an educated decision on what type of offer to submit. Those comps are critical. You've got to have access to those comps, in my opinion, to submit a solid offer. And that's another item here in this long list of value that buyer's agents offer you. And we all know that money is made in a real estate transaction not when you go to sell it, it's when you go to buy the property. You've got to get a good deal coming into ownership. And if you can't evaluate the comps and the market at the time that you're purchasing, that is putting you at a distinct disadvantage. Number 6, who is advocating for you in this transaction? Who is going to be looking out for your best interests? When you speak to a seller's representative, let's just say in a resale home, remember that listing agent has signed an agreement to completely look out for the seller's best interest and the seller's best interest only. That's where our fiduciary responsibility lies as a listing agent. We do not care about the buyer's best interest. Our loyalty is with the seller. Same thing if you go into a new construction community and you meet with the very nice people in the sales professional's office. Yes, they're going to be nice and courteous, but remember, they work for the builder. They don't work for you. They're not going to tell you, we do have a surplus of appliances. We'd be willing to throw in a few extra if you want to ask for that. Of course, they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that they've got a lot of homes on the books here this month and they're willing to cut prices on a couple of their models that just were completed. They're not going to tell you any of that. But as a real estate agent who's advocating for the buyer, we can try to get as much information about the situation and go in there and ask for things on your behalf based upon what we know. Advocacy is super important in a transaction, and if you don't hire an advocate, you are completely on your own. Here's another great example. What if you have to go to court and you don't want to pay a lawyer to represent you? So you decide to go in pro se, as they say, and you're representing yourself. You're not really familiar with court procedures. You're not really familiar with the court documents, and you kind of have an understanding of the laws, but you really don't know. So you just kind of Google some stuff. How prepared are you going to be for your court case? There's a lot on the line here. If you don't go into that courtroom prepared with all of your ducks in a row before you get in front of the judge, you are putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage. Do you see value in hiring an attorney? If so, you're going to pay for that attorney. Here's another one. Let's just say you are an actor or an actress in Hollywood and you are trying to negotiate with Universal Studios or MGM for your next big movie role. Wouldn't it be helpful to know what other actors that have a similar resume to you are getting paid for their work? Of course it would. That's why talent in Hollywood hire agents to negotiate and advocate on their behalf. Let's look at athletes. Let's look at Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, do you think he has an agent when he negotiates his football contract, or if he's negotiating endorsement deals, or do you think he's just kind of doing that on the side when he's not throwing a football? No, he has a professional in his corner advocating for him because there's a lot on the line. It's so important to align with professionals that do the task that you need to have done every day. That is their job. That is what they put all of their education and time and energy into. To think that buyer's agents are not needed now because, well, they don't have to be needed because there's no coupled commission in, it doesn't make any sense to me. The value has not changed. The responsibility of a buyer's agent has not changed. The way that commission is derived has changed. How are we going to come up with the value of a buyer's agent now? Is it going to be the percentage of the home being purchased? Is it going to be the number of showings you take your client out on times X amount of dollars? Well, we don't know that. That's still unfolding as this ruling just came about this past Friday. In my opinion, if there is value, there is business. We have to get super clear and concise about our value proposition, and if we do that, we have absolutely nothing to worry about. So what do you think about this new ruling? I would love to know your comments. Drop me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys on the next video.